the first year that we had Jack Hare come to Hempfest in '91, and I introduced him. I've always been the MC of the main stage. And he got up on stage. It's like, hemp can save the planet. Hemp is the answer to everything. And after the event, we're getting high. And I'm like, God, Jack, don't you think that was a little bit extreme? I mean, maybe if you toned it down just a little bit, it'd be more believable. And he goes, bullshit. Hemp can save the planet. And it didn't take me long before I realized, my God, he's actually telling the truth. He was spot on, And man, I got some great stories I could share about Jack.
And I have a concentrate. I have a concentrated Jack, but I hear that the strain itself is a sativa dominant, and Jack, and you might be able to give us some firsthand perspective on this, was more of an indica man. Have you ever smoked with Jack? What type of preference did he have?
I smoked many times with Jack. One time the Herbivores, which is the house band at Hempfest, this is in I think '94. They donated 2 pounds of pot for the magical joint toss, which used to happen for many years, for most of the years.
Yes.
And so we're in my house in Wallingford at the time, and everybody's rolling joints as fast as they can. Jack, this is like the day before Hempfest. So we got newspaper laid out on the floor. We got these 2 pounds of weed. Everybody's got rollers, on paper plates. We're rolling joints, and there's a knock on the door. And I was in the group called the Seattle Peace Heathens at the time, and we produced this crisis guide, a physical crisis resource directory guide for homeless people and elderly people, and all the above medical stuff. And so there's a knock at the door, and everybody's blazing, and the place is filling with smoke, like Cheech and Chong smoke. And I open the door, and there's this guy there. He says, "Hey, is this the Peace Heathen house?" And he's wearing a marijuana narcotic shirt with a big joint with a red slash on it and a Bud Busters hat. And I'm like, oh my God, this is '94. And I step out and close the door real fast. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I want to talk to you about getting Marijuana Anonymous in the crisis guide. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this guy away from the front, we had a huge bay window, and everybody's in rolling joints. And I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? We're so busted if this guy knows what's going on. And then the door opens and Jack looks out and he's like, Marijuana Anonymous, what the hell? And I'm like, oh God, And Jack walks out and starts talking to this guy. And after about 30 minutes, and proselytizing to the guy, and the guy's like, look, I'm not against legalization. I just have a problem with cannabis. I'm a cannabis addict. And Jack's like, cannabis addict, And so anyway, long story short, that guy ended up volunteering the next day. He helped us build the entire stage in his Bud Buster shirt and his MA shirt and Bud Buster's hat. And he volunteered and worked the whole entire day. And then about 5 years and became a member of the group. And now he's a blazer, man. Now he's pot every day. And somehow Jack was able to connect with that guy. And they became best buds, right? But yes, Jack did like the indica. Jack had a very high tolerance, of course, because he smoked morning, noon, and night. He only smoked on 2 occasions, which is weekdays and weekends, right? He was one of the most intense, driven people I've ever known, actually. He was a very complicated guy. Jack was a very good bro. Jack in 2000 and I forget exactly when he had his stroke, but he had a stroke and he could barely talk. And that would be the end of it for most people. They wouldn't be still on the circuit speaking engagements, man, if they had a stroke and lost their ability to vocalize. Jack didn't miss a step. He continued to speak at events until he got better and better and better at speaking. The only Hempfest he ever missed until he died was the year that which I think was 2010, the year that he had a stroke. And then he was right back on the circuit. I mean, it would have stopped most 90% of people. There was no stopping Jack, man.
Well, he was 100% for the cause. I mean, 100% for the message, 100%, he devoted more out of his pocket than, we don't have a present day Jack Hare,
No, we don't.
We don't. Profiteers.
Yeah.
He traveled the country selling his book. He funded his entire operation by selling The Emperor Wears No Clothes, the Bible of the modern hemp and cannabis movement, And he gave his life, I believe. I believe that, he died He died at Hempstock in
Yeah.
Oregon, giving us, on stage, man, speaking, or maybe just finished. I think he just finished his speaking. He literally died backstage at an event.
Damn.
Right? So, I mean, the guy gave his life for this movement, which is why we can't stop now, and which is why Hempfest can't let the COVID thing stop us. The whole, none of us can let COVID stop us. We got to get the word out, keep going, because we got to save humanity, and we got to get people out of prisons and jails. And we have to, and the other important thing is racial and gender equity. People of color have been disproportionately targeted and persecuted throughout Prohibition. I mean, longer than that, but especially by Prohibition.
I think that's why Prohibition came about around the 1930s, because it was with the Jim Crow, and then they also had the segregation. They're like, you know what? The 13th Amendment has a problem. It freed these people unless we arrest them.
In prison and demonize them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so the people that went to jail and prison for cannabis and the people that have been marginalized with this messaging, they should have equal, if not more, opportunity to be involved in the industry. So we need training and placement for people of color in the cannabis industry. And I don't just mean for employment, I mean for management and ownership positions, right? And there are people like Rashawn Everett of the Greenwood Project in LA doing just that, right? And then we also, women are historically in corporate world, they hit the glass ceiling, which is where you can only go so high. And then there are these barriers to promotion in this male-dominated corporate world. Well, there's the glass ceiling in the cannabis industry where it's still a lot of older, dudes, white men who control the money, which means they control most of the industry. And so it's just really important that we work and to spread awareness and opportunities of gender and racial equity, as well as we build a more sustainable movement. And that really, connects with the BLM movement and what's going on there. I mean, it's so important to find the alliances with the young activists today and protest movement between cannabis and everything else going on. This is a real opportunity for us to unite and get our messages combined.